Thinking about wealth development in the Bahamas? Wondering if it is still static and costly, or it is dynamic and accessible for everyone? Pause. Think about it with intentional thought and consider where we go from here. The new built environment. Pillars can help families build, protect, and pass on wealth in new ways.
SumTin to think about with Dale Happy Knowles.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. You're all around the world in the 242, whether you're in Ghana, or you're in France, or you're now in Belgium. Yeah, I hear you all the way up in Belgium. Boy, we just travel far. New York and all kind of places. Drop us a note. Let us know where you're at, what you're thinking, and what you want us to talk about in reference to this subject here about building wealth. Awesome. So we have tonight this special guest of mine, Mr. Scymont Fountain. And
Yes,
he's
sir.
a certified financial planner, trust and estate practitioner. He's a certified financial crime specialist, a digital asset specialist, attorney, a law. He's a loving person, and he's all about trying to help the 242 become greater than what we already are today. Welcome, Monty. You know, we very informal here.
Yeah, man. I thank you so much, Happy. I appreciate it. Thank you for welcoming me on the show. I know we had some back and forth about making this happen, so I'm very excited to be here to chat with your crowd and share, I guess, some of my knowledge from all that gobbledygook alphabet soup. He was calling behind my name.
Yeah. But you know, I got to give you your props, man, because you're a young man and you got a bunch of stuff that you done accomplished in life from preparing yourself to be the best that you can be. And that has to be honored because there's plenty of people I see every day and they're just floating. They're walking around like they're in the days and some of these people just don't know their calling. But you obviously, these aren't just letters behind your name that aren't strategically placed together because they all, when I studied them and looked at it a little bit, are strategically linked in order to become somebody who has a significant advantage or a niche service provider, specialist as they would call them. So I give you props for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Cool.
I was reading something today about learning to take compliments. So I thank you. I do thank you for that.
Well, you sound like you really born on my day because I had to train myself to be able to take compliments too. I give compliments to people all the time, but when people compliment me, my sister always fussing me out and saying I don't accept, or I know or whatever and stuff like that. It just wasn't natural for me to receive them. So I never
Yeah,
felt
well,
natural, right?
I mean, as a sidebar from, I guess, what we'll talk about more. The truth is, we as people, we are more governed and controlled by our emotions than we like to think, and we sadly have more negative emotions than we
Mm-hmm.
have positive ones. And a part of that is how we really accept positive things being said to us. So it's easier for us as people to say these things about another person. But if someone says something nice about us, those negative emotions kick in, and it's easier to brush
Mm-hmm.
those off and just discard them, and that makes life actually a bit more difficult in the end for us as people. So I mean, this is a bit just a part of the my own personal journey that I'm just going on with. Is something that I also am teaching myself as well. Got all that
Right.
other stuff done, so now is let's start working more on me as a person as well.
Right. And we're talking about investment, but I mean it's more investment than investment in cash. Right. And so that's what we're gonna talk about a
Hmm.
little bit. so forth. So if I could bring this quote up, yeah. So something to think about says that we grew up hearing talk is cheap, but money buy land. But that doesn't mean it has to be cash or even the same type of asset. Wealth development today is dynamic and accessible in new ways. So we want to pivot on that, right? And so I asked the question, where did it go? Where my questions gone? Yeah, right here. So how has that shaped how Bahamians traditionally think about wealth?
In my view, in my honest opinion, money by land has shaped greatly how Bahamians view wealth because in our society, land holdings and real estate is and will always be a part of the bedrock of a financial portfolio for anybody who really considers themselves or wants to really even consider themselves wealthy in the long run, and not just wealthy as an individual, but able to, as the Bible says, leave wealth for an inheritance for their children, is really in the land. That's the key thing. I think that's one of the strongest principles that Bahamians have always clung to, that hey, you need your papers, you need your land, you need your house.
Yeah.
It is the truth. It's the cornerstone. So in terms of building a wealth portfolio, um, one of the ways in which you can look at it, something that I was taught in my time as an insurance advisor in here in the Bahamas, as well as I was studying and trying to be an insurance advisor in Canada. But I learned about this thing. It's called the financial planning pyramid. And a part of it is it's just like any pyramid structure, and it's broken down into certain sections. At the base is your wills, your power of attorney. So, in other words, it's the plan that happens after you've lost life. I think the second stages from there would be um, insurances. So
Okay.
things that protects essentially what happens when health is damaged, and then the third rung from there is really your investments. So things that produce cash, and then at the top of that is having your estate plan in place, which really ties back to the bottom and essentially has the whole um, pyramid structure built. And as we know, the pyramids, they've been around for centuries, eons now.
Yeah.
We could barely even figure out how to build those things ourselves. That they stuck us back in time. But whoever built them, they put those structures together, and they are standing firm and strong. So it's the same thing if you want to look at with building your wealth. Your bedrock really should be above what's going to happen to your assets when you go, and then you have the stages in the middle to plan on what you're going to do in the interim. Now that's just like I say, that's the structure in terms of a house, but in terms of your actual portfolio, in terms of how that should be structured out, you would want to have a section for cash and liquid assets. You need a section for um, bond structures or securities or debt assets. And then you want a structure that is built around equities. And then there's also this structure or section, which is the alternative asset section. Now, if you look at when you take those four categories together, that's how you put together a portfolio. You have, like I say, cash, bonds, equities, alternative assets. And in that alternative assets column is where you find things such as land and land holdings. And that right there has always been a pillar that the Bahamian economy and the Bahamian people build on in terms of how they want to build out their portfolios for the long term. And then that affects that same pyramid structure that I was talking about earlier, with all the wills and powers, well, not really powers of attorney, but the wills, and then the estate planning in the long run, the insurances on these buildings, as well as just, of an investment vehicles to create those landowners. So those two really go hand in hand. But in terms of, like I say, the money buying land, that the land aspect of things, it's pivotal for us for because it produces transferable wealth, and in certain aspects, it produces income generating wealth,
Right.
and that's just that's what we know.
Yeah. So and I believe the land part is because land is something tangible that really people could see, touch, and feel, and know that it don't change. So
Yeah,
it's pretty much always going up, other than few situations where people intentionally put things around the space in order to cause the land to go down, right?
yeah, yeah. That's yeah. You put it.
Yeah,
You can't put it no better than that.
yeah. So if wealth is not just for cash and land, though, because you mentioned a
Hmm.
lot of other things there, what other assets should we be considering today? So you mentioned a bunch, but are
Hmm.
all of those being should be considering today, or is it just some of them?
We must consider all.
Okay.
It's not just some. It's because it's about understanding how each component works into a person's personal wealth portfolio. That is how um, you develop wealth. Honestly, you have to understand how each thing is going to tie in. You need to have certain insurance products to protect the assets that you have. You need to have cash in order to acquire assets. You need to have a plan in place if something were to happen, as to what's going to happen with the assets that you have acquired. If you don't have a plan, the courts will find a plan for you, and that could be chaos.
Yeah.
Um, so whether you have a plan or not, a plan will be made and the assets will be dealt with accordingly. So better to have your own plan with your own structures, and your own decisions. And that's where you have things such as wills, that's where you have trusts, that's where you have vehicles like companies. That's where all these things actually tie in. And that's the benefit, and that's how they're supposed to be used. You know, in terms of all those asset classes that I spoke of, like the cash, um, equities, the bonds, and the alternatives, they are also essential as well. These things didn't just pop up yesterday. They have been around for quite some time now, hundreds of years, well, 100 plus years, 100 plus years in some instances. So, because equities in the stock market has been open since what, the 1900s, 1919 thereabouts. We had like some of the first set of market crashes. So you had the exchanges in existence from then. Stock and companies been selling from then publicly, and bonds and securities have also been around as well, for quite some time. So these things aren't foreign and new. They're just foreign in terms of not being well known by the average individual. What the average individual out there does know, get money, so
Yeah.
um, put your money in, I guess, something to save, put your money in the bank, put your money under the mattress, do whatever you got to do. And that's the typical thing that the average individual knows. But all those things that I've listed, they've been around for quite some time. And I mean, sadly, if I look at your original question, are they accessible for Bahamians? Not so much, but they are available, and that's just the truth.
Yeah. Well, we can talk because I believe that they way more accessible than what they used to be, and it could be once you tie yourself into the right set of people and skill sets, then they become even more. And if you build the portfolio in a systematic way, then as you go, they will become more accessible, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, is the whole idea of saving and sacrificing still the backbone of wealth building, or has it lost relevance? That's when they used to say, "Oh, get a good job, um, take some of your money, 10% or 20%, whatever it is." I know you did a financial thing for us one time ago, and how to break it out into categories as what you should save, what you should invest, what you should use for maintenance, blah blah blah. Is that trend of thought still the bedrock today, or is like government bonds and all that other type of assets and tools, etc., something that we have
Uh,
to rely on too? Yeah.
in all honesty, that's still the bedrock. That's still the foundation because once, say for instance, I think there's a very, very wise man who said it best. His his name is on the lips of many people in many ways. And this is actually a quote from the New Testament. This is
Mm.
not from Spider-Man, but basically, if you could do well with little, you could do, do quite well with a lot in the long term, or who much is given, much is concerned. All these different
Right,
things is
right.
another variation to it. So if you can start doing smart things with the small amounts, I can only think about now. It really comes to me the quote from Proverbs. Really, wealth gained little by little lasts longer, but if you gain wealth quickly, and summarizing it, you gain wealth quickly, it'll dwindle fast as well. So that's biblical in and of its sense. But the idea really is still built on learning how to save and learning how to create the discipline behind it, because that's really the key thing there. It's not so much just saving.
Hmm.
The backbone and the bedrock is discipline,
Right.
and having the structures and having discipline is really going to create the systems that are going to flow and function in a certain way later on. So if you have the ability to ensure that you will save $10 out of
Okay.
every 100 that you earn, then after you start to save those $10 out of every 100, now you can start to move into investing into different classes. But you can't invest unless you have something to invest with,
Right. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
right? So and at the same time, it's pointless to have an investment vehicle created if you don't have the discipline to allow it to run its course as to how it's supposed to. So it works both ways. You have to have that discipline in order to establish it and create it, and
Hmm.
then you have to have that discipline to build and maintain it over time.
You
So
know, that's a
um,
that's a major thing on the whole for a lot of people, including Bahamians, the discipline part.
mhm.
Is we get into one rut or something, and oh, but I have this on the side here for something later in life, but man, I need that now. So let me go grab that. Bam. And then later in
Yeah,
life you have the issue and you don't have the money no more
yeah,
because it
yeah,
didn't grow to what it was supposed to grow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the struggles of the day, which is we want to get things now, we want to get things quickly. But that saving and sacrificing, it's still that backbone and bedrock, because it just gives you the confidence in yourself to know that if I do it this way, then I
Mm-hmm.
can achieve it better than if I take this quick route now. These are going to be my issues and problems. But
Yeah.
we don't like to stop and take that mental exercise of wondering which one is more costly, going now or going later.
Right. Right. Cool. So, with all that in mind, now with all these different tools and assets, etc., available to people, uh, that means that we have to have a plan.
Yep.
Otherwise, we can be bucking up. Um, when we need to push gas, we pushing brakes kind of thing, or we steering to the left when we're supposed to go to the right. There got to be some kind of plan and system to tell us how we going through all of this. So, how can financial planning make wealth feel dynamic and accessible instead of just costly and static?
Well, financial planning will make wealth feel more dynamic, in that it'll make you feel that you have something that you're moving towards.
Okay.
That's one of the key things, and makes it accessible because it shows you where you want to direct yourself and where you want to focus yourself. Instead of it just feeling like it's just going all over the place and this is costing me this and this is costing me that. So the
Mhm.
plan is going to make you a bit more proactive instead of being a bit more reactive. I kid you not, like without notwithstanding all these different things that I've completed, I have had my fair share of struggles where I've had to be more, whereas dynamic in negative ways for me and still costly. So I still had to face and figure out
Yeah.
and kind of navigate whatever is in front of me. But I still had at least, one or two guiding or principles and ideas as to what I wanted to achieve and what I wanted to try to go after. And I had to figure out, okay, well, this is the cost involved. This is basically what it is. And just understand that's what's going on. But that's what I'm facing. Sorry, but to have to at least understand what you're facing and what you're going through, you have to have at least an idea. You have to have at least try to write it down and try to think it out. And that's what a financial plan really is. It's not as high level as people think, and so crazy as people think. Or I'm not even sure how people kind of dissociate from what a financial plan really is.
Right.
It's as simple as opening up your pen and paper and saying, okay, I want to have XYZ dollars at the end of the day. I'm starting the day with these amount of dollars, so I need to figure out how I'm going to navigate the amount of dollars I have now to have
Right.
this amount at the end. That is a financial plan. Your financial plan could be as using the
Um.
same words as dynamic and open to whatever it is that what you want to achieve. A
Mhm.
lot of people their financial plans are as simple as, okay, I wanna go out this weekend and I want to party at this place, that place. I got $300 and I need my hair done. I need this done. They can figure those things out. They can make a plan for that. People can
Mhm.
do that,
Right.
but they don't connect that with the idea of creating a financial plan for what you really want to achieve later on, and
Mhm.
that's just unfortunate. But your plan allows you to just say, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. This is how much it's going to cost me. This is where the money is basically going to go. This is how much what I should have at the end of it. And these are my options.
Right.
So once you can see what you're looking at, you can determine basically what's your future going to look like, and that makes your outlook more dynamic and accessible based on having the plan, um, and based on just understanding what you got, what you're facing.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the show, you talked about the pyramid and the foundation and building blocks and all that kind of stuff. And so, being an engineer, I always look at things from a construction point of view, whether it's physical construction or digital or whatever it is. But you need a plan. You don't
Hmm.
go from buying the first block and having a house completely finished without a plan. So
Yep.
once you know that plan, and if you want to go down the street, you figure out what road you want to travel on to get from here to the sports center or whatever that's a plan,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so, like you say,
Yep.
they don't have to be heavy duty, complicated, or something that people think you need a master's degree in order to
No,
do.
it wasn't.
You
It
just
wasn't.
connecting two dots, where you are
That's
to
all
where
it
you
is.
want to be and how you can get there.
Listen, the Bible have a lot of just basics that people kind of, I guess, overlook. Because
Hmm.
again, Jesus said it quite best. It's like which king is gonna go to war and not gonna figure out if I should go and maybe negotiate with this king or take my 10,000 men and try to fight him. It's
Right.
right there in Luke somewhere. Like all of these are actually principles of planning. If you were going to build a house and not count the cost, like he has a lot of quotes on it. So yeah. Anyway, let's
But
go.
we like shortcut because we always trying to cut out somebody so we could save and then end up spending way more money in maintenance along the
Yeah,
way.
that's us.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
us. You right with that.
Cool, cool, cool. So, what common mistakes, other than that shortcut, uh, uh, people to make when they're trying to build wealth in the Bahamas?
Honestly, that's the you hit the nail on the head. It is trying to look for loopholes, look for shortcuts, and that is always going to be the number one mistake. Everybody thinks they're smarter than the system and the game and the way it works.
Hmm.
Everybody thinks that. There's nothing wrong, mind you, with thinking, okay, there might be a better way to do something.
Right,
There's a difference between, okay, I should, and there might be a better way to do this, or there may be a cheaper way to do this, or there may
right,
be a lower cost way to do it. That's fine. Some people actually trying to figure out, like, no, but like their mindset is this isn't the way it should be at all, and they're trying to find some, they're trying to navigate a situation that is not to be navigated in the way that they want to.
right.
So they're looking for the shortcut. They're looking for the avenues of getting by and trying to get ahead, or who could I cut out? And that's the biggest problem. That's actually bigger. That's one of the greater problems in society overall, because we don't realize if a lot of people are doing that same thing, um, and everybody, it's basically creating a macro problem of a lot of people trying to make small maneuvers to undercut somebody else. So you have a
Creates
lot
an
of,
imbalance. Yeah.
yeah. So you have a lot of minor undermining going on small scales
Hmm.
that snowball into something big,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
nobody's kind of accepting or realizing that, hey, that's kind of causing a lot of hiccups overall.
Yeah. So we touched on this earlier a little bit, right? But
Mhm.
I always have this running rebut that people hit at me when I say that the removal of the Immovable Properties Act caused a significant separation between um, Bahamians' growth using
Mhm.
their salaries and what they were able to secure in land. So you end up having a disparity of an imbalance of the foreign owners of land over Bahamian owners, and then Bahamians can't even buy into the land. I heard on somebody's show today they were talking about land in Pinewood used to be couple thousand, and now it's like 80,000 for the same type of land. Not Pinewood,
Yeah.
Nassau East. No,
Hmm.
Nassau Village.
Yeah.
And people, a lot of people get scared when you hear Nassau Village because of the social issues that they might have had there. But uh, if that happening at that level, you can imagine what's happening in other spaces where
Yeah.
people desiring to live or
Yeah.
to work and stuff like that. So where does it fit? Is it still a cornerstone? We talked about it a little bit about just one piece of balance plan, or everything has to revolve around that. We should use that as our anchor. Let me use that word in
Mm.
building wealth, right?
It's that's a good question. No, it depends. To be honest, I don't like to really always give a depends answer,
Mm-hmm.
but in all instances, it depends. And it depends on the situation that an individual has, and it depends on the circumstances that the person faces. So, for instance, you may have, let's take like a case study. You may have somebody who who has probably parents that may have made avenues for them to have land holdings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their concern shouldn't really be, do I need to go out there and try to acquire land? Their concern should try to be, okay, depending on their age, where they are at in life, maybe they
Right,
need to develop their career so they could increase their earning potential, and then they'll be able to um, um, save more and invest more in other asset classes, like
right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
cash, or well, develop or build up some more cash, or build up some more equity, or buy bonds or whatever, and what have you. Or if you're an individual that doesn't have that homestead, or that inheritance of land to really come to, then you need somewhere to rest your head.
Yeah.
It's not so wise and advantageous to have some place that you have to be in the position of renting. That's not, that's going to be more costly for you over time. So it really depends on the situation and the factors that a person faces. Funny enough, it also depends the way our country set up. It also a lot of it also depends on the island that you're in, and
Okay.
as well, because we talk a lot about land. Where does it truly fit? Here in Providence, it's land is a very costly commodity because there's only so much people, there's only so much square foot of land. I
Right.
mean, there's so many people and there's only so much square foot of land. But then you have islands out there such as Grand Bahama, which much more square footage of land and
Less
much less
people.
people. But then their problem is the economy. So it all depends on, again, where you are, the location you're at. And it's the same problem even in a Eleuthera, in an Abaco, in a Long Island. Because in those places you could still purchase land at a very reasonable rate, but then the question is going to be your earning capacity and your income. So
Mm.
where does it truly fit? It honestly depends on the person, their circumstances, and what they're going to be faced with and where they are at. So it would really require to take a level ahead and just kind of look at where they are, and
Mm.
again make that plan as to where they are, where they want to go.
Cool. But folks, you're watching something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles, and we have the mighty, mighty, mighty Monty Fountain with us, and he's dropping a lot of nuggets on the table. So if you have any questions, do ask it, or comment, or if you agree, don't agree, whatever, just let's engage. Let's have a conversation under the tree as we usually have. So Monty, how
Yes,
should
sir.
Bahamians think about I can't say the word diversifying between traditional assets and the new ones. Some people don't even call
Mm.
these assets, but I mean that's a different animal altogether. But they have value, so I call them assets.
Yeah. Now the way I used to really think about those traditional assets. Now, if you go back to like what I said earlier about having that portfolio, having
Mm-hmm.
that structure in place, having your asset classes, you have cash, you got your equities, you have bonds, then you have the alternative asset class, right? Now, depending on where a person is at in life and what they want to achieve, those classes they change, and the best way to always look at them is put them in percentages. That's why they taught
Okay.
us fractions as we were
Yeah.
children. You just put it in 100% and let's break it down into percentages. Cash should always remain anywhere from 10 to 20%. You want to stay liquid into that area, depending on where a person is at in life. Um, that equities area should maybe be anywhere from like 35%, maybe up to 65%, somewhere thereabouts. That leaves, say, another, they say, what, 30 something percent for bonds, and then an extra 20 for your alternative assets.
Okay.
That's generally how it is. Honestly, if you look at even some of the large companies out there, they're you would find more likely than not their portfolio of assets may reflect something similar. They have a certain amount of cash, they have a certain amount of equity or stock holdings that they have a certain
Mm-hmm.
amount of bonds or debt holdings that they have, and then they also have a certain amount of alternative assets. And it's the same thing for us as regular Bahamians. We should diversify. We can't just you can't just keep like the saying goes, don't keep all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
So even again, going back to the Bible, the Bible talks about diversification. Is actually I think in the book Ecclesiastes, invest in,
Mm-hmm.
I think, 7 or 8 different things is what Solomon said there, because you never know which one is going to produce a return. Don't quote me on it. Like I say, I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
summarizing them here, but that is the idea that he put out there. That's the way it should work. You want to spread yourself out so that you can try to produce returns in varying areas. Um, so think about your asset classes like a team. Don't think about it like a dolphin, for the dolphin fans out there who think like everything is
Now
just
watch
going
it
to
now.
be a
Watch it
Super
now. Watch
Bowl.
it. Watch it. Watch it now. Watch
It
it.
ain't everything. Ain't everything it does be Super Bowls and touchdowns. But think about it, like a team, you need your running back to get you a couple yards here. You need your wide receiver to take things over the top if you have to, and you need to have things for your defense to make sure that you don't have a lot of problems on the back end. So it's the same thing with diversifying your assets. You need your
Mm-hmm.
cash for a certain percentage and certain amount of things that you have to do. You need to stay liquid. So, for instance, you need your emergency fund, like I talked about in a different place and time. So that's the whole purpose of having some cash about. You need land because the land is going is a asset that's going to hold value and likely increase in value. And
Right.
again, if you want to transfer this wealth later on, is something that is going to be more transferable over time compared to some of these other things, because cash is going to be affected by inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Land is going to be inflated most of the time in terms of the cap cost, but
Right.
land is going to have its other factors affecting it. Stocks, they're going to be, they have a portion, they have a real position to play within your portfolio as well. They grow over time depending on what is being invested in and what is being considered. And in this new and current age, the digital space, the digital assets, they are there, they are growing, they have not left. They are producing and generating incomes, and no matter what the naysayers are saying out there, and the the I'm trying to find the right word for it. Anyway, the contrarians, I guess, to it.
Mm-hmm.
These digital assets, they're still here. They're holding their value and they're growing in value. So it's also something to look at, to consider, to add to the value of your overall portfolio.
Yeah, and so you mentioned my Miami Dolphins, right? And I pull for everything Miami. So those
Mm,
people out there who fake and be somewhere, be in Pittsburgh one week and the next week they in New York for another sport, and then next week they in somewhere
right.
else, right? I can't worry about them too much, right? So but my Dolphins, the only team to have a perfect season, right?
Right, W.
And so forth. But that took was that they had a system and a team, and like you said, you had this diversity of all these
Mm-hmm.
assets, and so they had that at
Mm-hmm.
every position in their company. Today, the
Yep.
Dolphins, as much as they could put on the table on the field, some great assets, they always have one or two that in key positions that can cut the mustard. But their
Yep.
biggest fall, in my mind, has been at the top tier of ownership and their general leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they don't let anything mature or build up to build equity and like in financial monies and stuff like assets, wealth. You need time to build up
Yep.
certain things. To if you have land
Yep.
values triples and go economic um exponential over time
Mm-hmm.
in value. So the same thing with the Dolphins. The minute they get something that could work on the field, then they pull the rug from them because their focus, the owner's focus in my book, is on putting people in the stadium and selling the goods and food and beverage, etc., and all that kind of stuff. Winning the Super Bowl or winning in the playoffs, to me, is a secondary thing to him. He's a realtor, right?
Yep.
So I mean, you also got the issue of building on the people burial ground, but that's another story. So
Yeah, that's true. You touched on a lot, but the number one
yeah,
thing is, like we had said earlier on, the biggest issue is discipline. And a dolphin will do what a dolphin will do. They ain't got no they ain't have the disciplines to develop what they need to develop. So
yeah. The Dolphins have them, the people, the players, but these are the people who don't have it. So Pamela
mhm.
Gomez is saying here, what you say? Good evening, gents. Very informative discussion. Happy game over. Bam. And she talking about my Dolphins now, right? But she don't know
Yeah.
anyway. Our Dolphins get something that other people don't have, right? And that is what they want. Boom.
We
Boom,
ain't
boom,
worried about
boom,
that.
boom. Right. Yeah, I know you ain't one with that. You all get one quarterback who can soon fall apart. But anyway, so which financial tools you mentioned insurance, mutual funds, retirement accounts, etc. works best for people just starting out? Because some people
That's a
don't have, they might not have the guidance or access
uh
to people like you and stuff like that.
mhm.
So they just want to know what they could do to start.
Honestly, that's a great question, and it takes me back to when I started out, which was I started out in insurance sales. So my go-to advice, if I had to think back even on those days and even now, one of the best things, the first things that people just starting out should consider is insurance. Mainly because if you're just starting out, that should correlate with your age, meaning that you're still young.
Okay.
Um, so when you're younger, that's the best time to get insurance. It's the least costly for you, and it's really that's the time when you really should plan or structure or acquire some of the better yielding products. What
Right.
I would advise for people like that are really and truly just getting started out, to look at insurance wise would be, the try to get more term products and combine it with an annuity. Um, the insurance agents out there, they're probably gonna disagree with me. But most of them out there. Um, but as a former insurance agent, I would still stand by this, for the individual that is just starting out. One of the
Mm-hmm.
best things they could do is really look at getting themselves a term insurance product, combining that with annuity, because when you have those two, you actually have created for your own self, the whole life insurance product or the universal life insurance product. So, but that's
Mm-hmm.
a longer, more detailed discussion that I don't think we have time for here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would say that's something, to definitely consider, along with another insurance product called the endowment plans, which are which is also a variation of the term product, but it also creates a face value that's achievable within the next 10 to 20 years. So it's
Mm-hmm.
also a good thing for people just starting out, say with those who are just about to have children. It's a
Mm-hmm.
good way to plan out how you're going to, acquire the funds for university and for schooling.
Right.
So those products assist with that. Those insurance products do that. Now, once you have those insurance products in place, I would say the next step is really to look at the retirement accounts, because, the earlier you start them out, the better it is. The longer that you'll have them in place, which will allow them to grow and develop over time. You don't want to. In my days in the insurance industry, I did give some retirement presentations. You don't want to find yourself at, near the retirement age,
Mm-hmm.
trying to calculate how much you need for retirement,
Mm-hmm.
because that number is going to frustrate you.
Right.
I did that calculation with a lot of people, and
Mm-hmm.
that number, it will frustrate you. If I could remember it correctly, what you want to do is you take your annual salary that you're making now, um, multiply that by 70% or 0.70. So you look at what you're making now, multiply that by 0.70. So in other words, when you retire, you're saying you want to have 70% of what your annual income is.
Right.
Take whatever your age is and subtract that from, well, the age you intend to retire. So, for instance, if a person is, say, 40 and they intend to retire at 65, that means they have 25 years to retire.
Right.
If they were making $100,000 and they needed 70% of that to live comfortably in retirement, that means they need $70,000 annually.
Mm-hmm.
So now you take that $70,000 and you multiply that by 25 years. Is it
That's the amount you
25
need.
years?
Yeah.
No. Well, it's either, this is where I have to go back to remember my old, presentations and stuff. Is either you would multiply that by 25 years, which is the money years you have until you retire, or you multiply that by, you could take, um, whatever age you may want to project out as to how long you may live. So if
Right.
you retire at 65, your average life expectancy may be up to about 80. So that's 15 years.
Right.
So you may want to multiply 15 times 70 to
Mm-hmm.
70,000, and that's how much you'd need
Right. Right.
by the age of 65
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
in order to, yeah.
And I give you a tip, people. You mightn't reach the retirement age,
Yeah.
right? I work, but the people for umpteen thousand years and left early, right? So you didn't reach the retirement age. So you're what you getting back and all that kind of stuff. You got to plan for more than that. So they say the 70%. I tell people to the 100. Don't worry about the 70%, right? Because
You have to find a way.
you don't know that delta. But
Yes.
the bigger thing to me is when you do it, take the D's and the paperwork and stuff like that and throw it in when safety deposit box, lock it away so you don't remember it until time later. Because
Yep.
otherwise you can find a way to say you need to get at it. Something can happen in
Yep.
life to cause you to get there, whether it's medical, this, that, or whatever it is. I'm not
Right.
saying to die and you have to leave all these things, right? If you need that for debt benefits and stuff like that, then yeah,
Right.
go take it and get yourself fixed up and so forth.
Right.
And so forth. But
Now
you got to plan for those things.
the reverse engineered way to do it, um, like this probably might be the quicker way to do it. What you need to do is consider, or at least have an understanding of what your monthly expenses are,
Mm-hmm.
and then you need to figure out how much income you need to cover your monthly expenses as well as the other things you want to do on a monthly basis, and start to ensure that you are building assets that produce that income monthly.
Yeah.
So if you're building those assets over time that produce that income monthly, by the time you hit that retirement age, you're not so much looking to have a big old lump of a nest egg to kind of coast you out. You just need to ensure that you have assets producing those income over time that is going to give you the monthly income you want.
Yeah. And, it's just like they say when you want to start a podcast or something like that, they say the best thing to do is just start. So when you're young, start. Get to this point where you could have these assets coming in later on to pay for things that you don't need. So don't worry about going to fish fry and thing every week and stuff like that. Find a way to put some money aside to invest in yourself and your family. So at what stage or at later stages of wealth? At later stages of wealth, which assets, real estate trusts, private equity, digital assets are best suited for building and protecting legacy?
For protecting legacy,
Yeah, so you
the
already
best
built up
one,
something, right?
right,
So now you need to do something with that. So you wanted to stick
right.
around, you want to still grow it, but you also don't want it to be a high risk. Right?
Yeah, the best assets that are for protecting a legacy would have to be either a living trust or a company, possibly even a foundation. But that's kind of neither here nor there. But on average, the better things you'd want to have is like you say, either a living trust or a company. A trust really is just your will that you've already created while you are alive.
Mm.
So um, the difference is once you turn over those assets as the settler of the trust to the trustees,
Mm-hmm.
the trustees now own the assets and they have them for the benefit of the beneficiaries. And once the trust is in place, depending on how the trust is structured, it may be a bit difficult as to controlling who gets what. You'll have to have that set up correctly ahead of time. So once the trust is set up, it allows you to really protect your legacy because you can put in clauses such as um, if you have, say, a daughter and you want to make sure she doesn't marry some wayward person,
Mm-hmm.
you could say, okay, if she gets married to somebody with less than favorable credentials, and you could list whatever your credentials are. They no longer get access to the trust. That's how
Right.
you. That's
Yeah.
how people protect their legacy.
Yeah.
Or or if the child, or but you have some assets, you build this trust up, and the child who's the beneficiary of the trust becomes a drug addict, or some loses their mind, they
Right.
could then lose beneficiary or beneficial changes of the trust,
Mm.
access to the trust. So the trust is one of the best ways to create that. Most people like to think of just having their will, but the problem with the will is you have to keep changing it, and whatever you change lasts. None of these things even take effect until you die in any event.
Right. Yeah.
Second to the
Mm.
trust, like I was saying, is having your um, company in place in order to kind of protect the legacy, and that really gives you a bit of protection in terms of separating the person from the asset in and of itself. So
Mm-hmm.
say if it's a business, or say if it's something that generates a lot of income, it protects, or it separates the individual, and the company is its own legal natural person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sorry, legal person, not a natural person. So
Mm-hmm.
because it's its own legal person, it is treated completely separate and apart from another individual. So for instance, if you own a company, you have all the assets in the company, and if a person tries to personally sue you, they can't go after your company,
Right.
or the assets that are attached to it. As well as a company it makes it easier to transfer your assets, and protect that legacy along the way as well. Because you can say, for instance, you could have a company and say, okay, my sons and daughters, I'll make you shareholders of the company as well as directors of the company, and all the assets that you own, you put into the company. Now you don't have to worry so much about probate and estate fees and all that. Because if you pass away, all the assets are owned by the company. They are
Mm-hmm.
shareholders of the company. You have a shareholder agreement. The shares just go to them, and your assets of the legacy is continued on, as
Right.
well as that's how it could continue on later on, and the company lasts and lives for a long time. Now, in terms of building wealth, it depends on how you want to really build your wealth over time. And again, this comes to the factors of what an individual is faced with. So if you're ready, um, if you have a lot of cash and a lot of the other assets in place, then you can consider looking at things like the digital assets out there, or start to look at different equity options that you may want to invest in, or partnerships and ideas that you may want to invest in. Or if
Mm-hmm.
you're a person who don't have the cash, then you need to then you need to try to look into ways in how to develop that cash, to build your legacy really. So now that means your attention needs to be turned on how to invest in myself personally, or how to
Mm-hmm.
invest in any idea that I have in order to build up the cash that I need.
Cool. That's a lot. And one thing I always say, I played baseball, and you always had a coach. And so get a coach. Let that coach, the person, guide you through all these different steps. Because
Mm,
we're putting a lot of things on the table now, but then uh, you might remember everything, but you could always go back and watch the show over and over and over and
yep.
over and take your notes. And that's the idea. We want to help you grow and become the best you that you could be, and
Yeah.
so forth. Cool. So, how do we separate the hype of real opportunity in crypto and digital assets? People will always tell you, "Oh, you could go to the moon after you invest in this and that and all that kind of." And not just the digital assets, but I mean almost anything. Some people will do that for, but there seem to be a lot of hype um,
Yeah.
for the digital side today. Maybe because it's new. I don't know, and people know less about them.
Yeah. I mean, just separating the hype it just takes a lot. Again, we got to go back to our keyword from the beginning, is discipline. You have to sit down, count, basically take stock of what you're looking at, what you're investing in,
Mm-hmm.
and take counsel. Go and ask the right persons, who would be knowledgeable about things that you're not knowledgeable about.
Mm-hmm.
Gather the information necessary and make a sound, wise, structured decision. That's the best. That's how you cut the hype out of anything.
Okay.
You shouldn't just run headlong into anything. And again, I'm paraphrasing that, but it's somewhere in Proverbs. But it's wise to take good counsel. So
Mm-hmm.
even God does take counsel. He say, "Let us make man." So he takes
Right.
counsel. He does things in counsel. So
Mm-hmm.
who stands in the counsel of the Lord. So take use counsel in order to knock away hype.
Yeah, that's good. Great, great, great. So, can digital assets really create pathways to wealth for young Bahamians who don't have access to land and big savings?
It can. It depends on the opportunity that a person has out there.
Mm-hmm.
It really just depends. Depends on the knowledge base that they have. It depends on how they are trying to make their mark within the digital asset space. There are many ways in which you could create your pathway to wealth. You could become an expert in the area and be able to help build digital asset companies. And if you put together a good enough idea, that may take off. And then there's also if you have individuals like I know personally who I used to work with at different entities who are using like the same space of podcasting to even um, give commentary on digital assets, and by doing so, they're building a following and they're monetizing that, and
Right.
that's also an avenue to building and creating wealth. So many different ways that it can be created.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a matter of how a person would like to really develop themselves and build their own financial um, stature over time. So
Right.
digital assets provides it just is another avenue, really and truly, um, or another corridor to building wealth, similar to almost any of the other areas. Because there are individuals out there, they have commentary on stocks, they have traders on stocks, they have persons who actually work for companies that trade, and those are all different ways in which people build their wealth in the equities market. Likewise, same for digital assets.
Digital assets. Yeah. Cool.
Mhm.
So, should wealth developers invest in different assets depending on which stage of wealth development they are at? Because we always talk about a game plan. Okay, so um, when we look at a football game, there's a game plan, and
Mhm.
certain times parts of the game in the 4 quarters, you do different things or try to do different things because that's what the other teams they do is stop you from doing your game plan. Um,
Yeah.
and life have plenty defenses getting your way to stop you from doing the game plan. But should you just have the same assets straight through, or should you switch up and do something with the game plan as building your wealth?
Well, you put it best really in terms of using the um,
Football.
metaphor with like a football, and it's the truth. You have to have a game plan. You should have some kind of plan that you want in place. Just how they are in football, you have a few things that's scripted in the beginning, but as the
Mm-hmm.
game goes on, you have to adjust. And as we know, when it comes to betterment of the game and the better teams, they are the ones who make better adjustments as it goes on. So it's the same thing with wealth. You can't say that you just want to stick with the same assets and stick with the same plans, because that's just not going to work. It's a bit unrealistic in some instances. The persons who used to make 8 tracks and cassettes for
Right.
cars, those businesses are long gone. Blockbusters is not here anymore.
Right.
um, the assets classes have adjusted. So if Radio Shack is gone,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite clear that you can't just stick your head in the sand and just call it that and say I'm gonna just do this one thing. There are some things that you can do that with, but even in those areas, you have to be able to pivot and adjust as required, depending on even what that is in and of
Right.
itself.
Right.
That's life in
Mm.
in all aspects. You can't say I'm gonna just stay in one area um, until the end of time. No, it's not going to work. You have to stay. You have to keep your head in the game. You have to stay cognizant of what's going on, and you have to be willing to adjust where you're building streams of revenue from.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to take note of, okay, what's improving, what's lagging, what maybe needs more attention, what should I stop giving attention to, what should I
Right.
switch to.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things you have to make those, you have to continually make those assessments. And like you said earlier, it's good to have a coach to assist with these things. And but the more important thing is to be cognizant and aware of the changing landscape.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when I look at that, I look at the scenarios that you said. Cash and land is still the bedrock, right? But
Yeah.
let's look at the cash today in the bank. Uh, Banks paying you minus percentage. You know,
Yeah.
I say
Mm,
minus. They don't say it's minus. But people say it's zero, but I say it's minus because they charging you fees for you to keep your money in their bank for them to use it, right?
yep.
And in the Bahamas. So those things, cash is good, yeah, but you got to put it in perspective. Land, I give you an example of the garbage collectors in, I guess it was Oakland or wherever it was, and they positioned them on the other side of the bay and put
Hmm.
them on in San Francisco, and then now when it flipped and everything moved from Oakland and San Francisco started to boom, they wanted the garbage collectors to move because they now have the premium property. It's a strip about 2 or 3 miles on the bay where they have like a million and one these, I don't know what you call it, houses. They're tight together, but
Mm,
and their children, they were going to sell and their children tell them no. I know just
yeah.
another and so now those children are billionaires because they refuse to sell the land and they just renting the land to the people who now go from like a low tier income
Yeah.
property to now being massive,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
everything is fluctuates. So you need a
Yep.
coach. Get a coach, people, right?
Hmm.
Not just YouTube coach. I mean, I know I follow YouTube a lot, but not just YouTube. I have friends like money them I ask questions, right? And when I need help, I go give them money to do it for me. Cool. All right. So there's a major part of all of this investment that we tend to ignore. And matter of fact, we tend to ignore it in all disciplines that I find. I remember a couple of years ago, maybe about a decade or so ago or more, there was a fire marshal who told me that almost all of the homes in a certain area that caught a fire because of electrical malpractice. Let me call it that, right?
Hmm.
They didn't follow the suit, get the proper inspections and all that kind of stuff, and had the right people building the thing. There was a lot
Right.
of FII type to do, and so the house
Hmm.
just caught a fire and ran away. So we need to have compliance laws and state plan and etc. to protect our wealth and also to make sure that we live a healthy and safe life, right? So
Right.
we don't just lose everything. So, what do you say to that question there?
Um,
Yeah.
this is it's essential because without compliance, without the laws really in place, it could create um, a frontier type of space in a lot of industries and as overall. And by that I mean you basically just have a lot of people doing whatever they want, like just like the cowboy days,
Mm-hmm.
the wild wild west, so to speak. So the purpose of the laws, the purpose of the laws is to get in the framework, and then compliance is there to ensure that the laws are being adhered to, so that the framework and the structures are making sense and working. So they work hand in hand. They allow for a standard to be set, and then there's a way to check to ensure that that standard is being met at the same
Mhm.
time. That's the purpose of the compliance and the law aspect of it. So these things are essential for just protection measures in and of themselves. The estate planning aspect of it is really something that is that uses the aspects of the law in order to direct how the wealth is going to be transferred from one generation over to the next, and
Mhm.
that really is vital and key, because as I stated earlier, if you don't have a plan for your assets, there will be a plan made. The
Yeah.
courts are
Yeah.
going to make a decision as to who is going to get what. And they are going to simply use whatever the laws are on the books in terms of the state and probates, states and wills. They're going to look at it and say, well, okay, this person is going to receive this, and that person is going to receive that, and that's that. Because the courts are not going to manage your assets for you over time. They're
Right.
going to simply, that as the person is passed on, they're going to take a look at the laws and say, well, this is who is supposed to go to, and this is who is going to go to, and that's that. They're going to invite any contestants, any persons who can produce claims, and they have to produce their claims within the boundaries of the law, and
Mhm.
that's how it's going to be. So to avoid that, it's best to have estate planning in place. So you can do that by talking to your good advisors, your good lawyers out there, creating a will, creating a trust, or creating whatever vehicle you're comfortable with in order to direct your assets. So that protects where it protects everything that you've worked by directing it to where you want it to go
Mhm.
for at least one generation, or at least down to the second or third.
Okay. That's good because I've heard where they say sometimes stuff goes back and the government it goes to the government. Is that accurate? Because I know they must be putting in place a registry. Will that help this whole process that you're talking?
Uh, it, it depends. I'm not entirely familiar with any of the references in terms of stuff going back to the government. It all
Mhm.
depends on a lot of how certain things are structured, certain assets.
Mhm.
So I mean, it like honestly, it really, really and truly depends. So we've been seeing a lot recently in terms of Bay Street being seized by properties on Bay Street being seized by the government, but
Right.
they're using the law, because basically those assets were not being
Dormant. Yeah.
compliant to the law. So
Right.
you had I didn't read up on most of the cases, but I think they were derelict buildings. They could have applied laws such as any of the health protection acts or environmental protection acts to say, okay, this building is now condemned, so it has to be destroyed, imploded, whatever. And
Right.
if the person don't do it, now the government could step in and do it. And if that then is the case, then now the government could now possibly create a lien against the land. And if there's a lien against the land, and this is not being met or paid by whomever the registered owners of the land are, then now the government is just simply using another avenue in the law to now seize that asset. So I guess I
Yeah.
haven't followed it properly, but that should be the mechanics of how it would work, and that is when there's a failure or a dereliction of duty in terms of creating that plan for the assets going forward. So
Right.
when we don't, like I say, if we don't have a plan will be made at some point in time by
Right.
somebody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. So basically though, if you have the proper coaching and guidance and stuff like that, then you could avoid being in a position where you might um if there's even confusion where you might have somebody that will it to or living will it to or whatever you were trusted to and it doesn't
Yeah,
happen. So the
yeah,
government I understand will it'll be defaulted to the government. So if you have it it won't go to the government. It will go back to
yeah.
somebody in your family. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way we all would like it to be structured, and
Mhm.
that's just it is very possible to happen. It's just that we Sometimes as a people, we get very stubborn,
Right.
and refuse to take the necessary steps to make ensure that those things happen. Then you end up in those cases where, oh, my daddy said this and my daddy said that and daddy promised me this, and you got a lot of back and forth. And, that could go
Yeah.
in
Or
many
people
directions from there.
people complain that the government do this or do that, and
Hmm.
you had opportunity to make sure
Hmm.
you know not put in a position. So now you
Yeah.
mentioned a lot of things, a lot of references to the basic instruction before leaving it, right?
Hmm.
Um, so why does faith and values matter just as much as money and in building true wealth?
That's a great question. Faith and values, they matter. They actually matter more than building true wealth, because your wealth isn't just about um, your dollars and your cents. Um, don't forget, is the Bible that really tells, the Bible really and truly tells you you serve in one or two things. It's either God or money. Um, and you gotta hate one or love the other. And a lot of the other idioms and quotes that people have a lot about money actually still track back to the Bible in and of itself. So it's based on faith, and
Mm,
those that faith creates your value system. It creates how you view things, how you want to operate within things, or even how you think about things. As I was talking about, I think a bit earlier, with the emotional side of things. So your faith is essential to it. Like a lot of people like to say, the root of money is the root of all evil. That's actually incorrect. The Bible
mm,
actually says it's the love of money that is
right.
the root of all evil. The Bible has many things to say about money. It actually says that money is simply a tool. So, like, when you think about, and it should be used as a tool. It should, as any other tool, it needs to be wielded properly. You have to learn how to use it properly.
Mm,
You don't just pick up a hammer and just start
bang
trying
it.
to fry an egg.
Mm,
You can't use a hammer that way. So
okay.
it's the
Mm,
same thing with money. Like, you need to learn how to use money, even though it seems quite practical and quite simple. You need to learn how to use money and learn how to have some type of system, belief around money, and that's where faith and values actually step in. Because if your faith is just in your money, what you have, and your money makes you this, and your money makes you either more than or less than,
right.
then your value system is actually poor, no matter how rich you may be.
Mm,
And that's a sad place to be in life, because now you've made yourself a slave to something that is supposed to be a tool,
right.
and
On aid. Yeah. Mm,
yep, and you've made your worth tied. You've tied your worth to a dollar and a cent, when those things cannot even be passed on in life, per se, in terms of your legacy. Well, when I say pass on, they won't pass on with you.
right.
They
Yeah.
have to keep going to somebody else.
Right.
You're going to leave that money here, and you're going to go, and there's going to you're going to be held to account for all the actions that you have had here, and all the things you've actually said here, and the things that you have done. Your conduct is going to be weighed and measured. So, the more important thing is, what is your faith and what is your value system, not so
Mm,
much what is your money, how much dollars and cents that you have, because money comes, money goes.
right.
um, but at the end of the day, your soul is eternal. So
Cool. Cool. Cool.
why, as Jesus said, why gain the world and lose your mind?
Yeah.
So what
Yep.
profits a
There you.
man?
Yep. Cool. So if you had to leave one guiding principle for Bahamians on wealth development, what would it be?
One
Put it
guiding
all
principle.
put it all together. You know,
I
you
put
got
it all.
50,000 things behind your name and all these different benefits and what you know what that means as so you get perspectives from all kind of angles. So what would be
Yeah.
this the one thing that people should grab and put in their pocket, top pocket and keep it there so that they could always reference it.
The number one thing that they should put in their pocket and reference is, um, get 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 wisdom, get discipline, and get consistency.
Oh,
Just like the
consistency.
Bible say, if you get wisdom, silver and gold, wealth and riches are in her hand. So get wisdom, that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And get your discipline and get your consistency. You looking to build wealth, you can't build wealth without knowledge. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be more difficult to do so. And
But you
then
can't
at the same
sustain it
time,
at least. Yeah.
you can't build something without discipline, and it's very difficult to build something over time without being also consistent because you're gonna have to keep working. As the idiom says, Rome wasn't built in a day. Not even the heavens and the earth were made within one day. God took seven, so
Mm-hmm.
it takes time. It takes consistency. So get wisdom, um, get develop that muscle of discipline
Mm-hmm.
and be consistent. Funny enough, people already have a lot of these things. They have it just in the adverse and opposite direction. We are wise in the things that make us dull and dumb, and
Mm-hmm.
we are disciplined in things that take us nowhere, and we are consistently doing nothing to help ourselves over time, except for looking for laughs and wasting time. So most people are doing these things in the adverse direction instead of trying to put
Right.
themselves in the correct direction. So
Yeah.
that's it. That's my 5 cents to people say.
Yeah. Yeah. Two for 2 cents. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's serious stuff, right? Because consistency builds trust, and that's critical right there of the whole, right? So I get this last question for you: is what uh, a bold question you think viewers want to ask, but were reluctant to ask that we need to answer to build the new built environment, this new wealth construct that we have that we want every Bahamian and citizen and resident of Bahamas to have.
I think the real bold question people really want to ask but reluctant to ask is, do these people really even have an idea or clue what they're doing? Like, is there really a plan? I think
Wow.
that's the bold question that nobody is actually asking,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe a few people are asking. Um, yeah, I think that's the question to really ask, and we need to have answered. Like, is there a plan? Do people even know what the hell is happening? Who is in charge here? What's going on?
Right. Right.
Um, because what can you build if there's no direction, no plan, no end? Like, if we don't even know exactly where we're going, if
Right.
everything is just this idea as to what's going on, what's happening, if everything is nebulous instead of concrete, who has an idea what's going on? So,
Right.
um, so that's I think that's the bold question to kind of ask and try to figure out.
Awesome. That leaves for something for them to think about, for people to think about. Right. Cool.
Yep.
Cool. 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 So, Mr. Fountain, I call you Mr. Fountain every so often. This has been real. You've dropped a lot of nuggets on the table. You give us plenty of things to listen to watch, to write down, to read, digest, and then come back and figure out how we can put it all together.
Yep.
What would be the step that people need to take after they do that and they decide that they want to go on this journey to really build wealth? I'm not just talking about, say, go in the numbers place and pray that they hit a good
Hmm.
draw or whatever it's called in the numbers place. I don't know, right? I work too hard for my money to give it away. But what would be the next step for them?
Well, the next step, once you've actually put your plan in place, you've asked all the necessary questions, you've started to develop that get the necessary wisdom and knowledge, the understanding you need, start to talk to the right people, start to take action just in the smallest ways possible. Try to create a snowball effect. Look at some of the small areas and start to build little by little over time. Again, going back to the Bible with the faith values, wealth gain little by little will
Mm-hmm.
last. So start to look at the small things that you can start to do. Look for people don't like to kind of address, but look for some of the small ways that you can build on your projects and build your plans and your portfolio. Um, one of my go-to moves when I was studying throughout all those different things that we spoke about or even reference about, as I would address the different questions, I would try to break down the questions into small parts and answer it bit by bit, piece by
Mm.
piece. So systematically, as you take on smaller things, it grows into something big, as the idiom and the saying goes, an elephant is eaten one
One bite at
bite
a
at a
time.
time.
Mm.
So take the small bite.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know who you are playing this week, but anyway, I know one thing: the Dolphin thing will win this Thursday. That's for sure. But
Yeah, no, I no. You didn't no. Yeah, the season is over.
no, I know about that. But I'm so glad that I pursued you for as long. I ain't gonna say how long, but just look at all them letters behind your name, and that could give people an idea as to how long you probably took to put all them letters behind your name. Is when I asked you from when we first did the first planning exercise to
Yeah,
come on. But
yeah,
I'm glad it didn't happen then and it happened now. Or you could have done it then and now. But because what you put on the table today, I think can help a bunch of Bahamians and people who watch the show around the world in figuring out what's their next steps and how to develop wealth. Um,
yeah,
and the wealth might mean becoming rich, where you drive a Learjet or whatever and stuff. It might just mean you can live a sustainable life and not have to have the stress of wondering where your next dollar is coming from.
correct.
All of that, everybody has a different vision as to what wealth is and what it means.
Hmm.
And so we want to thank you for something to think about for dropping all these on the table. And if you could type in the chat where people can reach either you or who you feel they should be reaching in order to take the next steps, then that might be something to think about too to do. And you don't have to,
Yeah,
but it'll be good. So we want to thank you, like you say, and hopefully when we come back now, we could pinpoint and just grab one of these pieces of the topics and maybe drill down deeper so people have the width and then
yeah,
they could get some depth as to what
yeah,
to do next, right?
yeah. That's no problem. Yeah, man. That's no. Thank you for even having me on. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. Best way to reach me on email, and it's just my first name dot last name at gmail.com. So it's very simple. So first name
Mm,
dot last name gmail.com. That's
yeah.
me.
So the same name on the screen now, not Monty, but
Yeah,
Scymont.Fountain. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so I need to find whatever I did with that. But anyhow. All right. So like I say, I kept you a little longer, only a couple of minutes, but I think it was worth it. And
Happy to
let
be
you
here.
let you go and do all the good things you need to do on an afternoon that you need to be doing. And
No
sound like
problem.
maybe my ears going or something going, but I'm trying to figure out what it is. Yeah. All right. So thank you kindly.
Thank you,
Peace.
man.
Peace.
It's a pleasure to talk to yourself and your audience. And best of luck to everybody out there. It's never too late to get started, so just get started today and let's make it all happen.
Awesome. Yeah, we gotta build this $100 billion economy so that we all could be living without stress.
Yeah.
Cool. So, folks, you've been watching something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles, and like we said, we had the mighty, 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 mighty Scymont Fountain. We know him as Monty, and he's a young man who got a lot to offer. If you ever see him, tap him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you was the man who was on something to think about, who helped me become so, so, so successful in managing my money." So that would be an honor if you people were to do that for him, so he would then know that he brought value on the table. And if you found the value as we spoke just now, out of it. Do hit the share, like, and so forth, so that you can get all the updates that you want to get, and also other people in your group and your friends and so forth will get notified. YouTube will notify them and share the show with them so that they can learn from it as we move forward. So thank you, Candy. Till next week when we have another strong discussion under the tree here on Something to Think About. Peace and love.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative, 242.